Hey, Caitlin, thank you so much for joining me today. So today I just wanted to ask you a few questions about the online yoga teacher training and your experience, not only for everybody that's considering doing it, but also for feedback for me, because I constantly love to improve the program and make it better for the students. So Caitlin, you went through my most recent training. The first question that I have for you is, what made you decide to go through a yoga teacher training to begin with?
I think it was pretty much just based on the conversation that we had last summer. I had been kind of more or less posting about my yoga progress on social media also, and I a lot of friends were coming up to me being like, "You should teach. It's so good." And I'm like, I just started. Like, how would I know how to teach?" And then we talked, and you said it's actually better that since I'm brand new for the most part, like to to take your program because it's geared for beginners. So if anybody would understand the beginning, it would be someone like me who's just starting out, and that I didn't need to be super experienced because everything was like basically geared to be modified for beginners. So it just made sense. And then I really was just in a place where I didn't know where I was going career wise. And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a try. People think, sometimes you don't believe so much in yourself or you're just not sure. And you basically kind of go, I should probably listen to what people are telling me, because if everybody's saying the same thing, maybe they're right. So then
Yeah.
give it a shot.
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, once you are hearing things over and over and over, it's kind of like, maybe it's something I should at least look at.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you listened to your intuition and that you did that and that we found each other on social media. There's a lot of negative things that people say about social media, but for me, especially because, I live out in the middle of nowhere, it's a way for me to really stay connected to everybody. And I think it really just depends on how you use it. If you're using it in ways like this to make your life better and to grow spiritually and emotionally and even physically, I think it's can be really awesome. And also to really just deepen connections. And, what you were saying recently, like at the end of the training, is that you really wanted to find a community, and I think that a lot of people really are searching for community. And if you don't find that right where you live, it can be really disheartening. So, Facebook and different places like that are great ways to find that. And so something I just wanted to touch on a little bit that you brought up was that, my program's geared for beginners. So yes, beginner yoga teachers are a great fit for my program, but also people that have even gone through a yoga teacher training could be a great fit for my program. It just depends on what they learned in their training. So in my training, yes, I focus on how to teach beginners because I think a lot of people have this misconception that you're going to teach a class and like all of these yoga pros are going to come and like they've been doing yoga forever. And usually that's not the case. And also what's usually not the case is that even if they've been doing yoga for a while, a lot of people don't know the basics. They don't know, how to do the poses correctly, how to do them with the correct alignment, how to do them safely. And so a lot of people that go, that have had me as a teacher, even though they've been doing yoga for a long time, they'll be like, wow, I've never had a teacher say that before. Or I've never had a teacher adjust me or, have me change that pose. So I think that it's a really important thing to be able to do is teach beginners and to teach alignment.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I've had mostly people approach me that are like total, like even since I posted about how I finished your course, I've had a lot of people who've never done yoga that are basically waiting for me to tell them where I'm teaching so they could come. And then people during my beginner class who have done yoga did say things like, yeah, I've taken yoga and nobody ever explained the alignment for this, or they just said, do warrior two, do this, do that. And they don't
right.
get any explanation.
That
So
makes
they
me so
feel,
happy. Yay.
no, it's great. It's perfect. And it made me happy because they were like, I didn't have to look at you. Like you did the cues perfectly. And I didn't feel like I was a complete loser. Like their confidence gets killed when they try to do something that's supposed to be something fun and easy and relaxing. And it becomes overwhelming, stressful, and they just give up. And a lot of my friends who came were like, I did it once and I didn't do it again because of that reason.
Exactly. And I was just I was doing a live stream earlier today and I was saying it really depends on the culture that the teacher creates for the class. So the culture that we create as, Yoga Goddess Academy trainees or graduates now is that it's a culture of listening to your body and only going to where it feels good for you. And so many yoga classes have that culture of push harder, or touch the ground, or touch your foot, do this or do that. And whenever you're always pushing and your goal is to do something like touch the ground in a standing forward fold, that's when injuries can occur. And that is overriding your body's signals that are telling you, hey, you need to stop. This does not feel good. And so in our classes, we make sure that we're teaching people actually how to listen to their bodies, because we're just the guide. You know, we don't know how things feel in people's bodies. It's like, hey, this is the class that we're going to lay out for you today. You know, take it easier if you need to, or do what you need to do to nurture your body for today. And every day we meet our body at a different place. It's not the same body we had yesterday or 10 years ago, right? So we have to check in with that every day. So another question I'd really like to dig into a little bit is, you know, there's a lot of misconception, I think, about online yoga teacher training programs. And while I do see a lot of merit for sure in, you know, in-person programs, I think it's also really important to take a training with a teacher that you love and that you're like, man, I want to teach like her. Like you know, and of course I don't want just a whole bunch of mini me's running around. I want you to, you know, be able to bring your own self into it. But there's just certain teachers that you really resonate with and that you want to learn from, right? And so if somebody finds that with me, I want to be able to offer that online program. But that's just one of the reasons why I really like to do it, because I can't be everywhere. But I'd also just like to hear your input on, you know, I think the biggest question people have is, how can you learn, you know, correct alignment, say, in an online program?
I think it's just the way that you, for lack of a better term, I hate saying the word dictate, but the way that you cued it for us and then watching us do it to make sure that we're actually saying what we're doing. Like, I think it's pretty simple to see through computer. And since like we're relatively, I don't want to say like experienced, but we are experienced yogis, we already kind of sort of in the position enough. And then you can say, just by looking, you know, make sure that you're actually opening up your chest like you're saying to do, like make sure that your body's following your cues, to which you can see. And then the students and you and I, we all kind of watch each other. We broke off into separate groups and we watched each other cue and our alignments and all these things. So we were able to correct each other just verbally, which I almost feel like for me, like I already know from my teaching style, I'm not going to be the type person to touch people. Like I'm not comfortable touching people, and I know I'm not comfortable people touching me. So I feel like it's so important for me. If I can't verbalize what you need to do, then I'm not doing justice to my course. Because once again, it's a beginner course and everybody should understand the safe alignments and not pushing yourself. And again, like it's also hard for someone to try to do pose while they're looking at you. So if you're not cueing it right, and you can go over and just kind of point and say, hey, you know what, just do this a little better. I don't want to be overly touching people. Yeah. So my goal is to be able to never have to touch anyone. You know what I mean? So if they can get it right just by my words, that's awesome. And I think that made me almost like a stronger teacher by doing it remotely, because again, like I loved your style when I first met you. And I was like, I'd love to teach like that. I couldn't really go on the retreat that you offered at the time. So it made sense for me just to do the online class. Yeah. So again, like, I feel like my cues became better because I was forced to verbalize it more.
Yes, for sure. Because you can't rely on just like, oh, just let me come over there and fix it, you know, right. Or, you know, let me just come right by you and show you exactly how to do it. So that is kind of like a last resort for me to actually have to touch somebody, because I think it's a lot more empowering for the student to be able to get into it themselves, you know, by themselves, and just listening to your words. And yeah, you never know. I mean, there is more and more, you know, people coming out with trauma and different things where they'd rather not be touched. There are certain times whenever I do love touching my students, and that's like in Shavasana or something relaxing, you know, things like that. And, you know, I do touch my students a good amount in person, but you don't have to. And that's really just the people that, you know, I really know. And I always make sure that we do ask, you know, does anybody have any issues with, you know, some gentle adjustments or anything? But even with adjustments, we're never actually manipulating the body to get it into the right position, because that will hurt people. I got hurt by, you know, a master teacher adjusted me and thought that I could go way further than I could, or that my body would just move in a certain way, and it wouldn't. And so I don't know what I did to like my rotator cuff, but that was probably 4 years ago and I'm still dealing with it. So, you know,
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you got out of the program that maybe you didn't really realize that you would? You know, you probably just came thinking, you know, how did you go into the program thinking that you'd get out of it? And then what did you end up getting out of it?
Um, I didn't really know what to expect going in. I mean, I figured like, oh, I'll have a certification, I'll be able to teach, but I had doubts of just myself, not really the course so much, but like anytime anybody asks me to do something, I immediately panic. So like at the beginning of each session, if they're like, okay, we're going to teach how to do this, I'm like, oh no, am I going to be able to do this? Like, I always freak out.
Yeah.
But I've never taught anything in my entire life. I was never a teacher. I was never a tutor. I was always I was the learner. So,
Yeah.
and listener and doer. Like, so just for me to come out of it as somebody who can actually be a teacher, and I'm getting the feedback that, wow, you're a great teacher. I'm like, I've never wanted to be a teacher. Like I always was, I mean, teacher meaning like in school. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a teacher. I don't want to do that. It's just
Yeah.
not my personality. But now it's like, I've become a teacher. And it's just like, and I'm not just saying because of the skills I have, it's just how I'm like nurturing my students as they, you know, perceive me to be doing. And I just never thought that would be me. I'm just like, that's pretty cool.
So, you know, what about confidence?
Yeah, confidence too. I think I'm not a big, like all my jobs I've had since I graduated from college are just of me sitting at my desk and not really speaking all day. I'm on the computer, I'm doing emails, you know, everything is just me being quiet, reading stuff, figuring things out, sending emails. So now that I have to actually talk more, it's weird because like my voice gets easily a little bit tired. So I have to just practice and do it more. So for me to get up and be like presenting myself and being a leader is just, it's new to me. So
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a leader in things in my life. Like when I used to have a band, so I was kind of like a co-leader of the band, but this is just, it's different because it's like, they're just watching me play music. Like this is like, I'm teaching, I'm leading a course, I'm
Right.
leading the charge. So it's a little bit, it's just, it's never, I never thought I'd be in that position. So it's cool.
Yeah, I never saw myself in that either. And I had somebody message me the other day or write somewhere like she's really terrified of public speaking, so she doesn't think that she would be able to do it. So what would you say to that person?
I think it's that, I mean, it's not so much I had a fear. It was just like it was just basically like if there was a line drawn, the leaders, the followers. I was the
Yeah.
follower, and
Yeah.
I guess it's just more or less listen to people who are telling you you're okay, you know, that you're doing well. So, you know, you might be scared, but if you're speaking and you're doing okay, and everybody's like, wow, you're great, you know, just listen to them and just trust the people around you that you're doing a good job. I mean,
Yeah.
you might think in your head that you sound like you're nervous and you're stuttering, because I do that. I still do that. I'm like, I'm babbling.
Yeah.
But you're like, just again, listen to the people around you and just get as much feedback as you can. And then, you know, if you need to tweak certain things, if people's like, you know, just make sure you project out this way or whatever, just listen and trust that people love you, then there's a reason why, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think in the program too, it helps with that overcome the fear of public speaking because you have to practice it. And I don't think most people, I would say the majority of people, probably 99% of people, I think that public speaking is like people's bigger fear than death. I think that they've
Yeah.
done studies on that. So, you know, if that's your fear, like you're definitely not alone. And I'm not saying you have that, Caitlin, but I just wanted to touch on that because you know, it's the practice, and it's the same thing, like anything that you're afraid of, you have to keep practicing it. You're not just going to wake up one day, but okay, like now I want to do public speaking, or now I'm ready to be a teacher. Like you just don't wake up thinking that. It's like these little tiny things and these little tiny wins. And I know that, you know, somebody else that went through the program that you went through was a little bit more worried about going through the program and with her accent and things like that. But having to practice it, you know, really helped her to build up that confidence muscle and get okay with it. And yeah, just to learn that you have a voice that needs to be shared with the world, you know. And sometimes whenever our throat chakra is a little bit imbalanced, it can make us, you know, not really want to share that. So what would you tell somebody that's, you know, on the fence about doing this program? Maybe they're worried about it being online, or, you know, not getting everything that they would need, or maybe they're just scared to take a program.
I would say things come to your life for a reason. And if you're on the fence, just leap to the other side. I mean, what do you got to lose? You know what I mean? Like I gained so much. Like I said before, like having to be forced to verbally cue everything as much as possible, since it's not in person, I think it will make you a stronger teacher. And if there's fear involved, I mean, I don't know. I do understand fear. I get it. So you just have to just take the leap, and then you'll live with regret. And that's the terrible thing if you don't try something that somebody's poking at you to do. Like if it's either you or their family or friends, and they just keep going through their feed on Facebook and they're seeing like, take the class, and it's just kind of like knocking on their brain. Just do it, because I'm telling you, regret is the worst thing in the world, and things are coming at you for a reason. There's signs in the world that are pointing you to the certain way. So just go for it. Again, you live with the mistake of maybe that wasn't for me, rather than would that have been for me.
Exactly. What if that could have changed my life? And the thing about these trainings, is that even if you don't end up, for some reason, if you don't want to be a yoga teacher, it can just open up so many other doors for you. Just like you said, like being a teacher. Well, maybe you're like, well, and for me, I love teaching yoga, but then it started to become more like I start to bring in more of the spiritual aspects and start to bring in these other things that I wanted to teach. But if it weren't for the yoga teacher program, if I weren't a yoga teacher, it's like, how else would I start bringing that stuff in? So it's a really good gateway to start bringing you to something bigger, maybe if that's what you want. So I just really like to use it as a stepping stone, because I've been talking a lot about purpose lately. And I think so many times we get really overwhelmed because it's like, oh, what's my huge purpose? Rather than what's my purpose like for today or right now? What's one step that I could take today? And I think something like this, a yoga teacher training program, whether if you want to become a yoga teacher, you just want to gain confidence, you want to learn more what your purpose is, it's a great step to start getting you there. You've just got to start taking those steps,
I agree. And I like you said, it opens doors. And I feel like I never would have tried to look into the chakras more. And now I can see myself like kind of like just things I'm planning in my head. Like I'd love to have like a daytime workshop here in my yard and do like a meditation. Another thing I never would have probably looked into deeper. An asana, and then maybe like a workshop about the chakras, where now I have to learn more about it. And once you learn about it, obviously you become more passionate, and you might have people that came to that workshop that were like, the asana was great, but the meditation was really what brought it home for me. And then you've helped that person in a different way that you didn't expect. Like you can be like, oh yeah, I wanted to teach yoga to get people in shape and flexible, but like that might not be what they really need. So like you're opening all these doors to be able to help people in all different ways.
Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Caitlin. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you so much for taking that leap and for trusting me and trusting the program. It was so amazing to watch you, transform. You really took it seriously and put in 100%, and that's really what it takes. It doesn't matter if it's in person, if it's online. It depends on your commitment to it and what you're willing to put into it, for sure. And you put in 100%. So.
Well, thank you. I mean, like, I think I wrote in one of my posts about it, I never really put in 100% into anything, like, at least like recently. So for me, it was like, if you do what you love, you're never gonna have to work. I never felt like, oh my God, I have class tonight. Like, as I did in college, I'd be like, I'm just not gonna go. But I never felt like it was just a burden to my day, or like, oh man, I gotta read. Like, I just loved every second of it. It was not work. It was not study. I mean, it was studying, but it wasn't like the studying I had in my past was not happy studying and annoying. This was great. And I loved every second of it. I'm glad I did it. And I now can live with no regrets. And I have so many opportunities that I can do for myself. Like I'm in control of what, for the most part, of what I could do with this. So I'm very excited.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Crystal, very much.